It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy, stupid.
Now, voters vote the way they do for a number of reasons. One of the most important factors is always the economy. As we are less than 10 months away from the 2024 US presidential election, it's time to check up on the state of the US economy and verify the truth. Since it is an election year, there has been a flood of lies and misinformation from the media and politicians from all sides. We are here today to present the real facts from an unbiased view. So how is the US economy doing? Horrendous, if you ask a Republican.
The economy is horrible.
The worst economy in 40 years.
Gas prices and food prices and the rent and utility prices because of Biden economics.
Bidenomics is, having people lose their jobs.
More hardship, more suffering, and more pain for the American people.
It's strong if you ask a Democrat.
Our economy is strong as hell.
The truth is always a bit more complicated. Let's start by fact-checking President Biden's claims on the US economy. Okay, so claim number one.
And wages are up, and they're growing faster than inflation. Over the past 6 months, inflation has gone down every month, and God willing, will continue to do that.
Now, if we look at the numbers, this has been true for the past few months. Wages have risen faster than inflation, so workers theoretically now have more money to spend. Last month, wage growth beat inflation by about 2%. However, through Biden's entire time as president, real incomes have actually fallen. The Consumer Price Index, or CPI, used to calculate inflation, has risen by 17%, whereas hourly wages have risen 14% since Biden's first day. According to the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, the average American family has lost $7,400 in annual income since Biden took office. Moving on to claim number two.
We're bringing down prices across the board.
This is a flat-out lie. It's true that inflation has slowed down, however it is still above 0%, meaning prices are still growing. Inflation peaked at 9.1% in June 2022. As of December 2023, inflation was 3.4%, however this increased from November, which surprised many analysts. If prices were coming down, inflation should be negative. This is called deflation. Deflation sounds good, but it usually signals a recession. The Federal Reserve target inflation is 2%. Here's a message from Jay Powell, the chair of the Reserve.
We're fully committed to returning inflation to our 2% goal.
Since Biden's first day, grocery prices are up 20%. Household staples like eggs are up 190%, and petrol prices, or as the Americans say, gas, have increased by 44%. According to Realtor.com, as of November 2023, the cost of rent has risen 22% from pre-pandemic levels. Biden has said he's doing everything he can to reduce petrol or gas prices. But this is not true. Petrol prices peaked at over $5 a gallon in June 2022. This was blamed on the war in Ukraine. However, according to the Institute for Energy Research, Biden has taken over 100 actions aimed at curbing the production of oil and natural gas. 32 of these actions were made after the war in Ukraine began. Eliminating fossil fuel subsidies and cancelling pipeline projects reduces supply, keeping petrol prices high. However, Biden justifies this as action to combat climate change, which is fair enough, I guess. At the same time, US household debt has increased immensely. For the first time ever, household debt surpassed $17 trillion in 2023. Credit card debt climbed to a record $1 trillion in the same year. Meanwhile, personal savings are down 74% since Biden took office. This suggests average Americans are struggling with the cost of living crisis and are being forced into debt to stay alive. To add insult to injury, Americans are also suffering from shrinkflation. Check this out.
Here are the most embarrassing examples of shrinkflation. Excel Gum turning 1/10 of their product into a thumb grip to make it easier to hold your gum. Toblerone putting more space in between their chocolate mountains. Lunchables reducing almost all the cheese located in their pizza meal. Ramen noodles shrinking the flavor packets. Superglue containers having an empty shell in the middle. Crayola selling half-sized pencils instead of the full ones. Colgate shrinking the size of their toothpaste. Gatorade increasing the dent size at the bottom of their bottles. And Klondike bars thinning out their chocolate sandwich shell.
These examples are pretty bad for your wallet, but probably good for your health. Okay, claim number 3.
Since then, the first 2 years, we created over 14 million brand new jobs, good paying jobs.
Well, first of all, politicians don't create jobs, entrepreneurs do. But the US job market is quite strong right now. US Department of Labor statistics show that unemployment reached a 50-year low of 3.4% in January last year. 800,000 manufacturing jobs were created in the past 2 years. Unemployment also reached record lows for African Americans, Hispanics, and disabled people under Biden. However, a lot of these jobs were recovered from the COVID pandemic, so don't count as brand new jobs. Between 2020 to 2023, only 175,000 new jobs were created. Also, a lot of the new jobs created are either part-time or government jobs. For example, the Internal Revenue Service, or IRS,
But the IRS? No, thank you.
announced plans to hire 87,000 employees over the next 10 years. So for any tax cheats watching, hard luck. Biden is set to bring in a new independent contractor law which could damage the gig economy. The gig economy is filled with part-time workers and freelancers. You see a lot of them as Uber drivers or Just Eat bikers. Over 57 million Americans work in the gig economy. The Vice President of the US Chamber of Commerce, the largest US business lobby, has said that the new law will result in less flexibility for workers, meaning less opportunities to earn money. This could lead to more unemployment and hurt the job market. Claim number 4.
Let me say that again. $1.7 trillion. We've lowered the federal debt.
Okay, the White House office later corrected and acknowledged that he should have said deficit, so because Biden is an old man, we can forgive this mistake. Anyway, federal debt under Biden has reached a record $34 trillion. This is a $6 trillion increase from January 2021. Biden has brought in many costly laws like the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. These policies have brought much needed investment, but the spending spree cannot continue forever. As a wise man once said, money does not grow on trees. In June 2023, a default was narrowly avoided and the debt limit was raised. The budget deficit fell by a record $1.4 trillion in 2022. However, this was because temporary emergency COVID spending had expired. The deficit would have fallen even further if it weren't for Biden's very expensive policies. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget believed that Biden's actions will add more than $4.8 trillion to the deficit from 2021 through 2031. Fitch Ratings took the top AAA rating away from the USA in August 2023, citing political dysfunction. Raising the debt limit again will be very tough for Biden since the Republicans control the House and are calling for spending cuts. If the USA does default, it would be a disaster, worse than Great Depression levels. Not just for the USA but the world also. Confidence in the US economy would collapse and global economic stability would disappear. Austerity would set in, meaning higher taxes and worse public services for Americans. We could see a complete breakdown in society with poverty everywhere. Last but not least, claim number 5.
We say it again. No one making under $400,000 will see their federal taxes go up, period.
When we look at Biden's 2024 budget, we can see no direct tax increase on ordinary workers. However, if we look at indirect taxes, the story is different. All economic agents are interdependent. This means actions taken by one group will impact the others. The 2024 budget sees higher corporation taxes. Higher taxes for businesses can result in cost-push inflation. Now, inflation is basically a tax as it cuts people's spending power. Increasing the tax rate does not mean an increase in tax revenue. Unfortunately for Biden, the Laffer curve exists. As we can see on the graph, if the tax rates pass a certain point, tax revenue actually falls. This is because workers work less, people turn to tax evasion and avoidance, or a brain drain happens, something we've covered in a previous video. Between 2022 to 2023, tax revenue for the US government actually fell by $457 billion, but this was blamed on weird conditions in 2021 returning to normal. We cannot deny on paper the US economy seems to be doing well. For most of the last 2 years, the media and many economists constantly moaned about a recession for the USA, but this never happened. The USA beat all predictions and recovered well from COVID. In fact, analysts at Morgan Stanley have credited Biden's policies for boosting economic growth. but many ordinary people do not feel it. Opinion poll approval ratings on Biden have reached record lows. It seems many disapprove his handling of the economy, but this low rating could be for other reasons like Biden's foreign policy. Even his approval from Democrats have gone down. More work is needed to help ordinary Americans with the cost of living. Moral of the story is, don't trust politicians. That's it for today. We will be following the US presidential and UK elections very closely on this channel, so please subscribe and turn on the notifications bell to stay in the loop. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you later.